You were born with a purpose and endowed with the seeds of greatness. I'm Chris Story, your host for Great Adventures in the Last Frontier. You're listening to Alaskan Matters. Along with me is Dave Webb, of course, engineering this broadcast and making it sound fantastic as always. Wanted to start off with something funny today because that's just the kind of day I'm having. I don't know about you, but every now and then, I don't know, maybe I ought to check my own vitamin D levels, which is what we'll be talking about in a little bit. That would be House Bill 90 if you're not familiar with it. But first, again, we're going to start out with something funny. My therapist says I have a preoccupation with vengeance. We'll see about that. It's an oldie but a goodie. I tried water polo one time, but my horse drowned. And if you're not already laughing with me or at me, and that's okay too, Yo Mama's glasses are so thick, when she looks at a map, she can see people waving back. That's stupid, but it's funny. All right, here's things you'll never hear a man say. You know, we never talk anymore. Let me hold your purse while you try that on. Forget about Monday Night Football. Let's just watch Melrose Place, honey. Sometimes I just want to be held. While I'm up, can I get you anything? Ooh, Antonio Banderas and Brad Pitt? Now that's a movie I gotta see. Here, honey, you use the remote control. All right, one more, and then I swear we'll get to the importance. You see, things are weighing on me, so I have to unload a little bit with some humor. And if I don't let some light in, it'll feel like I'm in a cave, right? I mean, if we're just talking about the problems at hand, and there are plenty of them, and solutions, but you got to have a little bit of humor. So I adapted this joke from one that I'd heard before, and I wanted to share it with you today. Yeah, and forgive me if you've heard it before, if I've left anything out. Okay, my close-up. Here we go. A man and a woman got into a car wreck. Each unharmed as they emerged from their cars, he looked at her and said, "It must be fate we met this way. And look, this wine bottle didn't even break. Let's stay together for the rest of our lives." She looked him over and he was quite handsome. So she agreed and said, "You know what? Yes, this is a sign." He opened the wine bottle and handed it to her. "To our future," he said. She said yes, and took several big swigs of the wine and handed it to him, and he put the cork in it. She said, "Don't you want a drink?" "Nah, I think I'll wait till the police get here." See, now it's gonna be her fault. That's what makes that funny.
I have to interrupt right here and tell you that in one of my visits, I won't name him, I don't want to embarrass him, but one of the heads of state that I met with on this visit, he gave me one while I was on the way. Told me the story about the two fellows in the Soviet Union that were walking down the street, and the one of them says, "Have we really achieved full communism? Is this it? Is this now full communism?" And the other one said, "Oh, hell no, things are going to get a lot worse."
Oh, you know it's true. They always get worse before they get better. But the good news is things do get better. The strong will always survive. It's survival of the fittest and the smartest. And the smartest path to take is the one of the individual. You know it to be true, or you wouldn't be listening to this broadcast with me. So don't go anywhere, because you'll have an opportunity when we come back to win a Blackwater Bend Espresso coffee card. The question might be surprising and, well, it might even offend some of you. That's the risk we take. We'll talk about what happens if the sewer backs up into your home. Oh, plastic bags. Is there a repeal in order? Will you help? We'll talk about the Main and Bypass intersection, House Bill 35. That's the vitamin D, mandated vitamin D testing. My concerns I'll share with you. Oh, expansion of Medicaid. What will sequestration have effect on Alaska? I've got a list I'll read to you here. We'll talk about it. What about your property rights? Will you help repeal 2011-12, even if it doesn't affect you? And what is Agenda 21? How did it make it into your backyard? And has your backyard become the new front line? That and more here on Alaska Matters. You're listening to Alaska Matters. I'm Christopher Story along with Dave Webb, and we're making your dreams come true today. You know, somebody helped me out this morning, so maybe you're in a place where I can help you. I was having a rough morning, and I confessed to this individual that I was feeling quite down. Actually, that wasn't the word I used, but never you mind. It was a personal conversation and feeling very, very low. And there's a sense of when you're in the valley of whatever it is, and you're in some sort of despair, a moment of lack of energy, a very low energy field, if you will, that you stay there. And there's a propensity for us to want to stay there when we're in the low valley. And I mentioned that to this individual who was very close to me, and she reminded me of a book that I turn to quite often. It's called There's a Spiritual Solution for Every Problem, written by Wayne W. Dyer. Wayne Dyer, great guy, written, I don't know, like 400 books. This is my favorite one, and I keep it with me. I have a copy here at my office and I have a copy at home. You can pick it up down at the Homer Bookstore, I'm sure, or wherever books are sold. But here's, and in fact, if you'd like to borrow one, we have the lending library here at Story Real Estate. You're welcome to borrow this book anytime. There is no way to happiness, Wayne says. Happiness is the way. Happiness is an inside job. You don't get it from anyone or anything. You bring it to everyone and every event of your life. And it's the funniest thing because when she reminded me that just turn, find a page, find a passage. And I said, so I flipped open to that exact spot in the book. Exactly that spot. And man, I'm telling you what, here you and I sit today and I'm in a good place. Such a good place that I shouldn't do this. I don't know. Maybe I won't. I'm not going to do it. I'll do that later. Maybe. We'll see. All right. It's time for our Alaskan Mindbender, brought to you by Blackwater Bend Espresso. Funny story about Blackwater Bend, real quick, I got to tell you. Thursday, the 21st, that was last Thursday, the Anchor Point Chamber of Commerce asked me to be the auctioneer at their fundraiser for the Snow Rondi. Excuse me. And so I stopped out at Blackwater Bend on my way to the event at the Chapman School. Great people, by the way. Awesome time. Had a really good time. Raised a lot of money. And the thing about the Anchor Point Chamber of Commerce and the people, the good, great people of Anchor Point, generous with their money, their deeds, and their compliments, and their time. Just overall, if you look up the word generous, that's what was exhibited at the Chapman School on Thursday night. Anyway, so the one of the owners of Blackwater Bend Espresso was in the audience, and I couldn't help myself. I said, I need a break. I grabbed my Blackwater Bend Espresso, and I said to the audience, I said, Blackwater Bend Espresso, halfway between Homer and Anchor Point, not your average drip. And then I took a sip and said, I'm contractually obligated to say that wherever I am in public. Anyway, it was a funny, sort of a Ricky Bobby moment. If you've seen that movie, you'll appreciate that. All right. Here's your question. I want to send you to the Blackwater Bend for free. And the way you're going to play today is to text me at 299-7653. Text message only today, 299-7653. Here's the question. Alaskan Senator Bert Stedman, it's a cool name, by the way. I've never seen a picture of him, and I probably don't want to, because that's such a cool name, Bert Stedman has introduced a legislation that would pay a bounty of $100 per what? Bert Stedman wants to give you $100 per what? A sea otter, a seal pup, or a moose calf. That's right. New legislation. Bert Stedman wants to pay a bounty of $100 per sea otter, seal pup, or moose calf. Ugh. Any of those options are horrific, but one of them is true. Send me your text message right now, your name and answer to 299-7653. Come on, play along. You know you want to. Text me 299-7653, and you'll go to Blackwater Bend Espresso for free. Two of you. Not just one of you, but two of you. Oh, what should we talk about? There was one thing that I wanted to get to, and I don't want to miss it, so I think here we go. How will sequestration affect Alaskans? So here's a list according to the Anchorage Daily News. Budget cuts could hit Alaska hard. Military funding, about 5,000 civilian Department of Defense employees would be furloughed, reducing their pay by $31.8 million. Teachers in schools, approximately $1.5 million for primary and secondary education would be cut. That's 20 teachers and 8 jobs. 2,000 fewer students would be served. 10 fewer... I have such a hard time reading. Okay. Early education, early Head Start, services cut by 100 children. Environmental protection, Alaska stands to lose $1.8 million for clean water, clean air enforcement. Fish and wildlife could lose $2.1 million in fish and game protection. Almost got everybody. Hold on. Employment, Alaska would lose about $337,000 in federal funding for job search assistance, referral, and replacement. That projected to affect 12,000 580 of you. Work study jobs, about 80 fewer low-income students would receive aid for college. Almost got everybody, but wait a minute. Oh, here they are. Seniors. Alaska would lose about $184,000 in money for senior meals. And I read this and I think, okay, you've heard the debate nationally. You know that the president had the governors there yesterday at the White House talking about all of the the drama surrounding this $85 billion in cuts. Well, how does it affect you in Alaska? Here's what's missing. I'm not hearing from, and tell me if you're hearing it and I'm just missing it, but I've not heard from Don Young, Representative Don Young. I've not heard from Senator Begich or Lisa Murkowski pertaining to these things. And what I really, really enjoy is when I hear somebody like Rand Paul stating the obvious, which is the growth of government will continue at a smaller rate. And you know what? None of us wants to see less money come to our state. None of us wants to see fewer jobs. None of us wants to see any of this, but I am, for one, tired of this. Aren't you? Aren't you tired of the games? And this brings me no answers here. I have no solutions for you. I have no answers. Sequestration's been beat like a dead seal pup, possibly being paid a bounty, but that's not the right answer. It's been beat around. I'm not going to solve this for you, and neither will you have the answer, of course. This conversation is being held at a much, much higher place. The point is, isn't it time for term limits? Isn't it time for Lisa Murkowski to come home and stay home and get a job, do something, and do not go back to D.C. as a lobbyist? Isn't it time for Mr. Begich to come back and manage Begich Towers and do something in Anchorage and maybe answer for some of the mess that was left there when he went to Washington, D.C.? Isn't it time, bless his heart, that Don Young come home to Alaska and just let some fresh blood? I'm tired of the games, and I just can't. I'm reading this, and sure enough, they've hit everything from military, schools, the environment, fish, jobs, people without jobs, people that won't get jobs, students, public health, and seniors. Everybody is covered. And in the ADN story, they don't talk about anything other than here's what could happen. It's like, wait a minute, why are we even in this position? This is ridiculous that we're even having to discuss it. It boggles the mind. Not as much as what boggles the mind last week. Did you hear Thursday's Radio Realty program? If you didn't, we had a special edition of Radio Realty, and we played host to Ken Halpin. Now, Ken Halpin owns a home here in Homer, and it was filled. It became a classic Chrisism here. It became a 3-bedroom, 2-bath septic tank for the city of Homer. And again, no finger pointing at any one employee. This isn't, the fault of the sewer operator. This was a travesty that happened. Ken was willing. He said, hey, let's work this out. The city manager, Walt Reedy, said to him, sue me. And Ken has been left with no choice. He's hired an attorney. And so if you heard that program, you know that I also said that I'm beginning to wonder what's happening to our community. So on the national level, we're being told and whipped into a frenzy every quarter, it seems like, that we're all going to die if we don't pass this new piece of legislation. It's the Republicans' fault, or it's the Democrats' fault, or it's his fault or her fault. On a local level, our property rights are being stripped away. You've lost the right to choose which type of bag you can offer your customers in your store. Hey, what's next? Maybe the size of soft drinks? Oh, no, that couldn't happen. Well, it's happening in New York, as you know. We've got, sewerage in your house. Please, that's your problem. I know we've got insurance for such events, but too bad. And guess what? Your homeowner's insurance likely doesn't cover sewer backed up into your house from the city municipal system. There's so much more. There's not time to get into all of it at this moment in time. Let's come back. I'm going to review your text messages, which have been pouring in. Thank you, 299-7653. We'll pick a couple winners here for our Blackwater Bend Espresso gift card when we come back here on Alaska Matters. You're listening to Alaska Matters. I'm Christopher Story, and back from a nice long break there. We've got... All right, so the question was, and Ralph, by the by, you are the winner. Ralph will be going to Blackwater Bend for free because he knew that, yes, Senator Bert Stedman, with the coolest name on earth, has introduced legislation that would pay a bounty of $100 per sea otter. That's right. Old Bert's looking to get rid of some of them sea otters down there in the southeast. Says that they're just overtaking the shellfish beds, particularly in the southeast where he is from. On Wednesday, he introduced legislation that would have the state pay $100 for each sea otter lawfully killed under the Federal Marine Mammal Protection Act. We're not talking about eradication, he says. We're talking about slowing the population of growth. In my opinion, we're not going to get any help from the federal government. Well, he may be right on that. I don't know whether there's science to back that up or not, but I just think that's incredibly... wow, they're so cute. Now, then again, my brother-in-law is of the descendant, he's a First People. I don't know what to say without getting in trouble. He's a First People, and he's able to hunt sea otters. And he said that they can be ferocious and nasty and are not the cute little cuddly creatures we think they are when we see them floating on their backs in the bay. But man, I just couldn't imagine walking up to one and or clubbing it over the head, whatever they're going to do. But it's doubtful that that's going to go anywhere. It sounds like it's more of an expression urging the federal government to do something about the population of the sea otters, which, by the by, were introduced, or I should say reintroduced, into the southeast region in the 60s after they had been eradicated by the fur trade. So actually, man had intervened, extinguished them, and then replanted them. And now they're becoming a problem to the point where the coolest guy on earth, Bert Stedman, is wanting them out of there. Let's talk about something a little closer to home. By the way, Mayor Beth Wyeth just actually tried to call me during the program, which tells you, Beth, you're not listening. Anyway, but she just was returning my call. I had a couple of questions for her, and so I think what I'll do is just invite her on the program and see if she has some time maybe in the next couple of weeks to discuss some of the things on my mind and your mind as well. So I appreciate the call back. Just poor timing. Councilman Burgess also, by the way, did get back to me. I told you last week I'd update you on what he said. Basically, the corner of Main and the bypass, there was a better use for the $2 million the state had appropriated, and that's why they picked two more items on the CIP, the capital improvement list, which included the harbor master's office and then the fire station up on Skyline. But essentially, when we did our semi-informal poll last week, many of you, I was surprised, many of you, in fact, you reached out to me even after the program and said, you know what, Chris, we'd just assume not seeing anything. You offered roundabout or light. We'd actually like to not see anything done with that intersection. We don't need a roundabout. We don't need a signal. Well, I guess we'll just have to agree to disagree. I think we do need a signal at that intersection. I think it's dangerous, and it's just a matter of time before something bad happens there. Speaking of bad, I think the bag ban here in Homer, Alaska was one of the most ridiculous ordinances that's ever been crafted. I think, let me just put it this way, it needs to be repealed. We need to start a campaign. Someone needs to take this up. And I'm hoping you'll join me in that. I know there's two or three people that are talking about this. If you're interested, and you don't have to agree, you're welcome to send me your thoughts if you appreciate the bag ban. Most of you do not. So if you're interested in being part of this, would you send me your name and number? Text me at 299-7653, and let's try to get some minds and heads and energy and backs into this, because it's going to take a group effort to really make this sink in. And let me just tell you, to the contrary of what the intent of this was, the intent, as you'll recall, Councilman Burgess was on this very program saying that he really wanted to cut down on the garbage that was being hauled up to the dump, and that's why the thicker plastic bag, because their garbage is going to be hauled to Soldana. Anyway, that was clearly not the point of this. The point of this was people control. Just like you're hearing this movement that it is not about gun control, it's about people control. And the city of Homer wanted you to be under their thumb relative to the behavior, your behavior, when you go shopping for groceries. They don't want you using plastic bags because it's a personal vendetta they've got. If they believe the people, and I say they, I mean Councilman Lewis and Councilman Burgess, and then, enough of the council went along with those two to create this ban on plastic bags. And now, what do? I come home with these stupid paper bags, pitch them. Throw them away. In fact, I'm generating so much more garbage. I cannot, by the time I get them home, they're torn. I've talked to so many of you that are experiencing your bags ripping out in the parking lot or at home. By the time you get home, you're frustrated. I understand it. I feel your pain. I want, before tourist season, and I believe you agree with me, we want to see this ordinance go the way of all bad ideas. Gone. right down the Homer sewer system and end up in Ken Halpin's house. That's what we want. We want this ordinance gone. And I mean, really, and that's where it belongs. You know, if Bo Burgess and others want to become elected to change and modify your behavior, and trust me, this is a slippery slope, the camel's nose under the tent. Do something different. Go volunteer at an organization that picks up garbage and advocates on behalf of renewables. Or, by the way, plastic bags are renewable and reusable. In my home, they were reused. Every single one of them was reused. I never took empty bags to the dump. Sorry. I mean, we reused them constantly. Well, now we don't, and we're using paper. It's just awful. I mean, it just, if you agree, send me a text, 299-7653, especially if you're willing to participate in some sort of a repeal. Let's talk about HB 35, House Bill 35, vitamin D, mandatory vitamin D testing. This was introduced by Representative Seaton. The best of intentions, good studies to back it up. My concern, mandated testing for infants, newborns, opt-out requirements require you to proclaim a religious concern. I just think that that's wrong. If the government wants to put out some funding and have a private research, people opt into the program, fine. I don't want anything to do with mandatory testing at birth, and if you have to make up some religious concern to get out of it. I think that's wrong. I've expressed my concerns to Representative Seaton. He did take the time to write a very nice reply, and I appreciate that, and I believe it's the best of intentions on the representative's part. I just disagree wholeheartedly with mandating that newborn mothers must allow this testing. I disagree with it on principle. Expansion of the Medicaid in Alaska program. I took a little bit of heat from a couple of you over this, that, being insensitive to people that need and require Medicaid. Absolutely not the intent. The intent of disagreeing with this was, Bill Smith said it best, if the federal government doesn't spend the money here, they're going to spend it somewhere. It's not like they're not going to spend it. Well, that's part of the problem. When you increase the poverty mindset of any state or nation, all you're really doing is you're furthering the expansion of people that feel poor and become dependent, not on themselves. They don't look within. They look to you, the federal government, the state government, the local government. That I disagree with wholeheartedly. I do not want to see an expansion of poverty mindset in the state of Alaska. We talked about the sequestration effect in Alaska. I say we all get in touch with Don Young, with Senator Begich and Senator Murkowski, and say, knock it off, you guys. Play nice back there. And then when this term's over, come home. Don't even think about spending that $1 million that you've got in a war chest, Mr. Begich. Donate that to charity. Do something, give it back to the people. You come home and do something else. This is not a lifestyle. I'd like to see that change. The property rights attack of 2011, I call it the 2011-12. That was a property rights attack ordinance, and there's a big repeal process underway. If you're interested in knowing more about it, you can find a lot of information online, but just shoot me an email at story@xyz.net. I'll send you all the pertinent information, how you can get involved to help repeal 2011-12. Do you get a theme here? There's a theme. We need to repeal some of this stuff, and we need to put the brakes on federal, state, and local government. Agenda 21 in the city of Homer. Can you believe that we've adopted United Nations regulations and policy in this little hamlet by the sea? I think that Brother Isaiah would be rolling in his park if he knew. He would not want this in our backyard. Absolutely not. Great program in store for tomorrow. It's called Radio Realty. You'll find it at 102 FM. 102 FM, that'll be 12:30. Dave Webb, thank you much for all your help today. Appreciate it. And thank you for tuning in. And as I open the program, so shall I close it. You were born with a purpose, and you were endowed with the seeds of greatness. Now go out there and have a great day.